Hello again, everyone. This is Artorimus here, back with part 2 of my making a ROM hack without any experience project. Part 2. Today I'm going to be going over a few of the edits I've been able to make with the DS Pokemon ROM editor for Soul Silver. Going to go into the trainer editor section here. This part of the software is a little bit more complicated. Every time typically when I close it out, I get some sort of error, but altogether not too complicated. So decided to go with Falkner. Of course, is the first gym. Upped the party slots from 2 to 5. Gave him a Murkrow to start out with a moveset of Assurance, Peck, Torment, and Fake Tears. Not really sure why. I did one test battle with him, and pretty much all the Murkrow did was just spam Fake Tears, which I guess gives all of his other Pokemon, except for Skarmory, who I'll get into later, just some more special damage. Kept the Pidgeotto just because it feels slightly iconic for Falkner. It's a little bit of a nothing Pokemon, but it's there. Natu for some special psychic damage, and of course Natu being an iconic Generation 2 Pokemon in and of itself. Followed up by Togetic. Nothing too crazy. Tackle, Gust, Roost, Metronome for some fun. But if you see here, it's got huge power. And that's part of the buffs I gave to Togetic. Basically made it a little bit more bulky, lowered the base special attack, lowered the base physical attack, but gave it huge power to compensate. Surely that will lead to some shenanigans with the Metronome. Shouldn't be too much of an issue for players, since it only is just the first gym, because I only gave it Tackle and Gust. Biggest change here, obviously, is the Skarmory as his ace. Gave it a Citrus Berry, of course, with Metal Claw, Peck, Toxic, and Leer. I had initially thought this would be a bit more of a pain to get through, but when I played through again on my first test run, really wasn't that big a deal. It didn't go over Toxic at all, and that may have something to do with, these AI check marks over here. In fact, I'll just go ahead and mark status. I think that means you'll be more able to prioritize using status moves. Skarmory is a bit of a wall, obviously very physically bulky. I think I gave it maybe a little bit more attack, just because that's fun. Essentially, if you pick Cyndaquil, you're fine. In the lead up to Falkner, I have edited the encounters in such a way that you can end up with a Magby. Smoochum would, deal with the rest of these Pokemon. You can Elekid, Mareep. There are certainly lots of counters. In fact, I'll show the encounter editor here. I'll go into Sprout Tower and show you kind of what I added. That may be a little bit of a nice surprise for an unsuspecting player. So if we go here to Sprout Tower, as you can see, 20% chance to get a Clefairy, 20% chance to get a Magby, 20% each Smoochum and Elekid. You could also wind up with an Eevee or a Cubone, or if you're very lucky, a 2% Moltres encounter. Now, I've got that set at level 3 as opposed to level 7 for everything else. Reason being, should you be so unfortunate as to run into one during a Nuzlocke and it starts with Ember and Wing Attack, that could spell doom for the player. So I forced the encounter to be at level 3 and then gave its level 1 move to be Will-O-Wisp, and it learns the other 2 starting moves it's supposed to have. I allow Moltres to learn those moves at level 5. So this way, if you get very lucky and your encounter for Sprout Tower ends up being a Moltres, you'll be pretty happy to be able to use that. So moving on to Whitney. Let me again save this. This may lead to an error, I'm not sure. Nope, okay, we're good. Moving on to Bugsy, same thing, 5 party slots. Bugsy keeps his Scyther in the start. I just think U-turn paired with Scyther is really cool, and that's in the base game, so even cooler. I gave him Pinsir with a little bit of type diversity here. I don't think Pinsir normally learns U-turn, But that's cool. Pineco, I think I'm going to move Pineco to the Scyther slot so that he starts the match with spikes. But I'm not quite sure. Then, of course, Butterfree, Single Beam, Gust, Roost, and Energy Ball for some coverage. And then last but not least, Ariados at level 22. I made some tweaks to the Ariados line, and let me actually pull that up as well. I gave it Arena Trap, just because it's a spider. It has a signature move called Spider Web that does not allow the affected Pokemon to switch out. So as opposed to having to take up a move slot for that, I just made it its ability. I feel like Shadow Trap may have been a little bit too broken, but I think Arena Trap fits the flavor of Ariados well. You know, spiders like to trap things. In the meantime, buffed its HP, attack, defense, special defense, and speed. Left its special attack because it's an Ariados. It's a physical attacker. But that should be a nice surprise with decently hard-hitting moves in Twin Needle, Cross Poison, certainly, Scary Face, and Bite. And again, as you'll see, the level curve here is up from, I think, 17 to 22. So let me save that. Moving right along here, we go to Whitney. Whitney is infamous for her ace Miltank, rolling out, stomping, attracting, and milk drinking on everyone. I left that absolutely alone. I think maybe I changed this from Thick Fat to Scrappy, just because I don't want the player to be able to just get a Ghastly and just easily cheese this gym. Upgraded the Clefairy to a Clefable. Forced Magic Guard as the ability, so Takedown actually does not incur any recoil damage, but other than that, it's got the same moves. Stantler, I gave Whitney a Stantler. Something of a war crime that she doesn't have a Stantler on her base team in the vanilla game. Easily one of the coolest normal types design-wise with the Intimidate. I also edited Stantler to have the exact same stats as Weirdeer. So it's also normal Psychic type. So it's really bulky, hits really hard. It's a little slow. But with Hypnosis, Psybeam, Stomp, and Shadow Ball, it's got fantastic coverage. I gave Whitney a Guts Raticate. As you can see, I changed the other ability, I think, from Runaway to Adaptability. But Guts is perfect in case the player wants to try to status the Raticate, they get punished, but I feel like Adaptability in and of itself would have been too punishing. So Hyper Fang for good stab, Bite as well, Screech and Scary Face for some support for her team. Followed up by a Wigglytuff with a pretty stacked moveset here. This could be Hyper Voice instead of Swift, but I don't want it to do too much damage since with stab it's around the same base power as the Bolt Beam coverage plus Flamethrower given the Wigglytuff. Last but certainly not least, Whitney's Ace is still her Milk Tank at a higher level of 27 as opposed to 26, but I gave her a Dunsparce as well. I also buffed Dunsparce to have the Dunsparce's stats. Serene Grace Headbutt is fun. Serene Grace Crunch defense drops are fun. Dig and Roll Out for coverage. So yeah, that's Whitney taking the player right into the mid game. Next we go into Morty. Morty originally, just having the Ghastly line is kind of lame. So I gave him Mischievous to lead with Will-O-Wisp, Mean Look, Spite, and Curse to kind of screw over whichever Pokemon the player has out front. If you can't, take Mischievous out too quickly, then it will certainly body you for that. Next we go right into Quilava. Again, it's a Fire Ghost type now with decent moves. I didn't want like Flamethrower here, didn't feel right, but I did give it Shadow Claw, Ominous Wind, and Spite. The Gengar is level 27. His ace that I changed is actually Mismagius. Not a Johto Pokemon, but Mischievous is a Johto Pokemon, and Mismagius comes from that. So I feel like that fits thematically. Maybe a little bit of a shout out to Fantina from Diamond and Pearl. But the Gengar is really just the same. I gave it Shadow... I think it has Shadow Ball anyway. But I lowered the level a little bit because 130 base special attack certainly hurts a lot. Followed up by a Gen 3 Pokemon, Dusclops, as well as Bennett, two of them. Just because, there's not too much diversity of ghost types in the first two generations. Right now, there's no way to obtain these Pokemon. I may change that later on, but for the meantime, I'm going to leave it as it is. Kind of hurts against my goal of keeping Johto's identity intact, but whatever. It's my game. It's a fun little thing. So yeah, that is Morty. Should be definitely an interesting fight if you don't have a dark type. Now, what I also did was I sort of kept the gym leader order the way it is canonically. So, for example, in the trainer editor, it goes from Morty to Price, then Jasmine, Chuck, and Claire. In the game, you can do these three in whatever order, but I decided to just keep it, again, to that canonical order, just so that I can keep the level curve consistent. So next we go into Chuck, who famously only has 2 Pokemon, up that to 6. He leads now with a Hitmontop instead of that stupid Primeape. Fake Out plus Intimidate is pretty good to neuter any physical attackers that lead. Close Combat, Dig is good coverage, and then Triple Kick for some flavor because it's Hitmontop. Next up, we've got the Poliwrath. Not as ace anymore, but I did kind of give it a nasty set of Hypnosis Substitute, so it can put your answer to Poliwrath asleep and then set up a substitute while you try to wake up. Or it could just put you to sleep and then go right for a Focus Punch, which will definitely hurt. As well as Surf. I'm not quite sure what the moveset looked like in Vanilla Soul Silver, but this is certainly a bit devious. And then I switched out the Citrus Berry for Leftovers because it's going for Substitute. So you gotta have a distinct answer for this Poliwrath. Next up, we got Heracross. I gave it the ability Skill Link, and then 3 multi-hit moves in Pin Missile for stab, Rock Blast for coverage, and Arm Thrust also for stab. Next up, we've got the buffed Feraligatr with, I think, 10 extra base attack and fighting moves, stab fighting. Moveset of Aqua Jet, Waterfall, Close Combat, and then Swords Dance for it to set up. So you've got to take this thing out quick, or else it will Swords Dance up, and then I would assume the AI will go for Waterfall, but I'm not quite sure. This is a fun one. Really looking forward for players to facing this one. This is a Choice Specs Machamp with no guard, given the moves Focus Blast, Fire Blast, which these are actually the only 2 moves it can learn via TM. And then I give it Thunder and Blizzard because I think that's really fun. Machamp obviously has a pretty horrible special attack, but with Choice Specs, that's buffed to +1 special attack stat. And then with no guard, none of these moves can miss. So this should be really a fun challenge for the player to see. Certainly something surprising. You see a fighting gym, you expect all physical attackers. Last but certainly not least, Donphan gave it Intimidate as well. Added the fighting type to its ground type to make it more Great Tusk-esque. With the moves Earthquake, Mega Horn, Brick Break, and Rollout. Good luck with this one. That's all I'll say. Chuck is notoriously horrible. We'll see how the updates make him. From Chuck, we go to Jasmine. Again, in the vanilla games, just 2 Magnemite in the Steelix. This is interesting. I've given her a Fortress lead with Spikes and Stealth Rock, followed by Iron Head for Stab and Explosion at low HP. With this AI modification, the Risk modification, that means when the HP gets low, they go for Explosion. So the player has to have an answer for that specifically. Next up, we've upgraded one of the Magnemites to a Magneton with Magnet Pull, with the moves Thunderbolt, Flash Cannon for stab, Supersonic, and Thunderwave to be annoying. Next up is her Ace, Steelix. I've upped the level again to 37. I've also buffed both Onix and Steelix, so they have significantly more attack. I think Onix has base 115 and is Steel Ground type, and Steelix is also Steel Ground type with maybe 120 base attack, but I lowered its physical defense and special defense to kind of balance it out. Moves here, really good coverage. Earthquake and Iron Tail for hard-hitting stab. Rock Slide and Ice Fang give you really good coverage of the flying types. Oh, actually, I need to change this. Scizor up next. Standard Scizor, Swords Dance, Bullet Punch, Bug Bite, Metal Claw. Good luck here. Politoed, of course, with the Drizzle. Surf, Hypnosis, Ice Beam, and Flash Cannon. I don't think Politoed even gets Flash Cannon, but I wasn't quite sure what to put in this 4th move slot here. Last but certainly not least, we've got Ampharos. This is the one from the tower. or the Lighthouse canonically. I'm actually going to give this Thunder. So now it synergizes really well with Politoed's Drizzle. Thunder, of course, has 100% accuracy in the rain. Then, of course, Thunder Wave, Dragon Pulse, and Signal Beam to round the moveset out. Yeah. So that is Jasmine. Moving on. We've got Price, the Ice-type gym leader. Now, this is interesting. I made Price a double battle. Reason being, there are no double battles in Johto, save for random trainers. This should be very interesting for the player. It's also a themed, obviously, Hail team. Famously, Hail is now Snow. In 4th generation, it's not. He leads with a Snow Warning Dugong with Blizzard, Icy Wind, Muddy Water, and Rest. Next to the Dugong, of course, is Weavile. I think it's got a Chesto Berry. That was another Pokemon with Rest, but whatever. With Fake Out, of course, is a fantastic VGC move for doubles. Blizzard is not great on Weavile, but who knows? Maybe the AI will go crazy with it. Night Slash and Ice Punch for stab. Next up, we've got its Ace, Mamoswine. I've got his ability as Snow Cloak. May change that just because Evasion is not very fun as a mechanic, but it's certainly the flavor of Mamoswine. Otherwise, it's Oblivious, which is not a good ability at all. Earthquake, bit of a double-edged sword, hits everything on this team except for Articuno. Earthquake and Ice Fang again for physical stab. Blizzard because this is a Snow team, or a Hail team. Jinx, Lovely Kiss, of course. It's a fast, hard-hitting special attacker. Can put something to sleep and then wreak havoc with Psychic and Blizzard. Ice Punch is there because Jinx loves to punch things in a cold manner. Pokemon 5, Articuno. Why the heck not? I love Articuno, and I want to see how Price can use Articuno. Last but certainly not least, we've got the Lapras with a pretty intimidating moveset of Blizzard and Muddy Water for stab with Thunderbolt and Body Slam for coverage. I'll save these as well. I don't think I made any edits. Last of the gym leaders, of course, is Claire, the Dragon Trainer. First thing that probably pops out, Shelgon, Flygon, and Altaria are not Johto Pokemon. However, I find her original team of 3 Dragonair and a Kindra in Silver and Gold and Crystal to be kind of annoying. And then, of course, in the 4th generation, she gets given a Gyarados, thank God. But it's not really a Dragon type, so I wanted to round out the team a little bit. So again, just like Vanilla Soul Silver, she'll lead with Gyarados. I've given Gyarados access to Fly in this game because Bounce is terrible and I hate it, with the moveset of Crunch, Waterfall, and Ice Fang to round it out. Next up is Shelgon. It's got a Choice Band because Shelgon's stats are pretty underwhelming, with Double Edge, Dragon Claw, Rock Tomb, and Giga Impact. Make use of that Rock Head. Next up, we've got Dragonair. This is, what was originally on here. Kind of a weak nothing Pokemon, just to be completely honest with you. But, hey, it's a Dragon type, and I don't want to give her Dragonite. Next up, obviously, the Ace Kingdra with the Citrus Berry. I honestly left the moveset the same. This thing is really dangerous in playthroughs, even vanilla playthroughs. It can sweep you if you're not prepared. Because Smokescreen is ridiculous, and Sniper, I think, doubles the damage from critical hits or raises it by some significant factor. So that can be a little bit of baloney for the player to deal with. Next up, we've got a Dragon Dance, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Dragon Claw, Flygon. Pretty standard. It's a Flygon. It's a Dragon type. Everyone loves Flygon. And then last but certainly not least, again, Altaria with Dragon Dance and just double stab. I don't really see a reason to put a third move slot here, but I think this Pokemon is really cute. I'm actually, I'll give it Earthquake to deal with Steel types you may bring to this battle. And we'll save that as well. Moving on to the league, it's actually kind of a bit of a pain to find the league trainers. The Elite Four. Excuse me for that. That is my cell phone. Here we go. Starting off with Will. You've got a Hypno lead. Originally he had 2 Xatu. I didn't want any duplicates in the league or the gym trainer battles. So I've given this guy Hypnosis, Confuse Ray, Meditate, Psycho Cut, Physical Hypno, just for a little fun. Jinx, of course, stays here, just with more added coverage. Exeggutor, I think, is the exact same, except I maybe swapped out Egg Bomb for Giga Drain here. I love this Pokemon. Very excited to see how it will do in this ROM. Next up is Slowking, just a standard Calm Mind sweeper, just very slow. You've got to figure out a way to, take this thing out before it takes you out. I leave his ace as Xatu, just because Xatu is really cool, and it kind of fits the profile of Will. Last but certainly not least is a Calm Mind Espeon with Psychic and Focus Blast and Light Screen to support its team. Moving right along to Koga. Koga is next. Another Fortress lead with the Toxic Spikes. I'm going to give him the Risk and the Status AI modifications. Toxic Spikes at the start of the battle is good. Another Arena Trap Ariados with Mega Horn, Poison Jab, Shadow Claw for coverage, and Toxic if the AI doesn't see any of the other moves as being viable. Muck. I've upgraded Muck to its Alolan counterpart, so it's Dark Poison type, really, really good defensive coverage. Hits really hard with Gunk Shot and Crunch, Fire Punch for Steel type coverage, and Acid Armor to shore up its weak defense. Then we got Ledian, one of the Pokemon I discussed buffing in the last episode. Again, give it Iron Fist paired with Sky Uppercut is really powerful together. Close Combat for Stab, Attack Order for Stab as well, just a cool bug move, and Agility, so watch out for this guy. I don't think Koga originally had a Weezing, which is weird as his Poison type, but I've given him one, and it's good. Just, hits mid hard, but is very physically bulky with that Will-O-Wisp. Fire Blast, Sludge Bomb for coverage, and then Explosion to kill you. Last but certainly not least is the Crobat. I kept Double Team just for a little bit of jank. I'm going to give it Citrus Berry. Actually, you know what? To make it just a little bit more annoying, Leftovers. I buffed its moveset a little bit, gave it Brave Bird over Wing Attack, Heat Wave for coverage, and Cross Poison for solid Poison Stab. Next up, I've got to find Bruno. For whatever reason, he's not next to the other Elite Fours. He is down here somewhere, so please forgive me for not being prepared. I just kind of recorded this off the cuff. Wanted to get something out. Here he is. Again, with that Hitmontop lead. I'm giving him Counter, because that's fun. Earthquake over Dig. Dig sucks. Rapid Spin, because it's a Hitmontop. They like to do that. Close Combat for really hard-hitting physical stab. Reckless Hitmonlee with High Jump Kick. That's all I'll say. Iron Fist Hitmonchan with the punches, plus Sky Uppercut. I get rid of Fire Punch, because it's kind of redundant coverage with the Fighting Stab. Again, buffed up Onyx. It's got 115 base attack. Hits very hard. It's very hard to take down physically. That No Guard Machamp again, but instead this one's a physical one, so you can't just really ignore it. Dynamic Punch with No Guard is terrible and awful. So good luck with that player. And then last but certainly not least, again, changes Ace from Machamp to Donphan. Again, I just love this Donphan that I have created, and very excited to see how everyone likes it. Since Bruno, famously a joke in the Generation 1 games, certainly not here. I'll say that much. He looks really threatening. Very excited to fight him on my own. And then we've got Karen, famous for her lead Umbreon shenanigans. I'm going to give her the Status AI modification as well. Same Umbreon in the lead slot. I don't think I changed any of this, frankly. I may change this Feint Attack to Toxic, just to mess with the player a bit. So Toxic, Confuse Ray, and Double Team strats, really annoying. Umbreon, famously bulky, so good luck taking this one out. Leftovers may be a little too mean, I may change that. Next up, Vileplume. I just changed its moveset a little bit. I think Vileplume fits on Karen's team as Flavor. It's a strong Pokemon in and of itself, despite not being a Dark or Ghost type. I kept the Gengar, Shadow Ball, Substitute, Destiny Bond, Focus Blast. I think this guy is going to be a little bit of a bastard, so good luck with him. Next up, we've got Honchkrow with just a really powerful mixed attacker. Again, not a Johto exclusive, but Honchkrow certainly packs a bit of a harder punch than Murkrow, especially with Stab, Drill Peck, and Sucker Punch, as well as Night Slash, Heat Wave for coverage. Houndoom is still her ace. Level 55, nasty plot with Flamethrower and Dark Pulse, and then I gave this specific Houndoom Earth Power coverage. It's not in Houndour's moveset. Just wanted to be a bit of a jerk with Earth Power to hit rock types. And again, last but not least, Fire Ghost Typhlosion. With the moves Eruption, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, and Will-O-Wisp, I'm not going to pull the jerk move and give it a Choice Scarf for Choice Scarf Eruptions, because I don't want the AI to accidentally lock into Will-O-Wisp with a Choice Scarf on. So that is Karen. I'm going to save this because I made some edits to her team. And then last in Johto, I haven't touched any of the leaders in Kanto. So last in Johto is Lance, four full restores. Crazy different team, I know. Salamence lead, Intimidate, Dragon Dance, speaks for itself. Again, not a Johto Pokemon. Don't really mind because it's so powerful. Gyarados, Fly, Waterfall, Ice Fang, standard for coverage, and then Rain Dance to help set up Kingdra with the Swift Swim. I've given access to the player many different ways to modify the weather in battle through abilities. So I've given, I think, Geodude Sandstream, for example, just because I think weather is an interesting mechanic that doesn't get used much in Johto, which is where it was introduced. So Kingdra in the rain from Gyarados, hopefully it sets the rain up on you. Good luck with that. Draco Meteor is going to hit like a truck, and then Waterfall will still hit really hard in the rain, plus stab. Next up, we've got Aerodactyl. Changed its moveset a little bit. Gave it a good flying stab. Rock Slide, of course, Crunch and Thunderfang for coverage. Nothing crazy here. This Charizard, I think, is unchanged, except I gave it Earthquake. I'll probably get rid of Fire Fang for something else, but I'm not quite sure. And then, of course, Dragonite, Lance's iconic Pokemon. Fire Blast, Outrage, and Wing Attack for coverage, and Giga Impact. So yeah, that is the Johto Gym Leaders. That's all I've completed up to this point. I'll make another video going over the changes I eventually come to make to the Kanto Gym Leaders, and of course Red. So that is all for today. Thank you so much. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. Give me a comment. If you write me a comment asking for a change for me to make in the game, I will make a little video of myself making that change and adding it to the ROM. So please, if there's anything you'd like me to add, just let me know. Thank you so much.